shows different possible combinations of various goods or two goods that can be produced with the help of given resources and given technology. As you know that resources are always limited and wants are unlimited. We have to fulfill our unlimited want with the help of limited resources. Production possibility curve is very useful to solve these center problems like what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Economy has to choose between alternative combinations of various goods and services. This problem of choice can be illustrated by a simple graph which is known as production possibility curve or a product transformation curve. A typical production possibility curve is drawn on the following assumptions. First of all, the assumption is the country has to choose between alternative combinations of only two goods. For example, if we are producing two goods like LED and computer monitor, then we have to make a choice in between of these two products. Either we can produce more LED and or we can produce more computer. If we produce more LED, then computer monitor will be produced less and vice versa. Second thing is all productive resources are fully employed and the state of technology remains constant. There will be no change in the technology when we define this PPC curve. And third assumption is all productive resources of the economy are fully employed. Fully employed means no one is unemployed. No one factor is unemployed under this production possibility curve. There is no wastage or no underutilization of resources. The productive resources are suitable for the production of both the goods. It means we have four resources like land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. We can use these factors of production in the production of both the goods, LED and computer monitor. This PPC can be explained with the help of table and graph. The two basic properties of PPC. Before understanding this concept, you must have to know about the basic properties of PPC. PPC has two basic properties. One is PPC is always concave to the origin, implying that marginal opportunity cost tends to rise. This marginal opportunity cost is the ratio of change in or loss in output of Y commodity divided by gain of output of X commodity. PP's MOC is the ratio and MOC describe the slope of PPC. It means PPC slope depends upon marginal opportunity cost. Marginal opportunity cost is known as marginal rate of transformation also. PPC is always concave to the origin due to increasing marginal opportunity cost. PPC slope is always downward because with the given resources and technology, greater production of one good must imply lesser production of other good. And the definition of marginal opportunity cost is it refers to the loss of output of good Y when some resources are withdrawn from the production of good Y to produce one more unit of good X. Now this table shows clearly what is PPC. Production possibility curve generally shows different possible combinations of two goods, and that two goods may be consumer goods, may be producer goods, maybe one is capital good, other is consumer good. Production possibility curves shows different combinations. Different combinations means like A, B, C, D, E, F. These are different combinations. And we are producing here two goods. One is cloth in million meters and other is wheat in million quintals. If we increase the production of cloth, then wheat production will definitely fall. And if we increase the production of wheat, then cloth production will definitely fall. What is the reason behind this? The reason is resources are limited. We have only four resources for the production of both goods. Either we can use four resources in the production of cloth or in the production of wheat. If we assume that we are not producing cloth and all the factors of productions are employed in the production of wheat, in this case, cloth production will be 0 and the production of wheat will be 15, which is maximum. Okay. Next, as well as we increase the production of cloth like 1, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, then the production of wheat will be definitely fall down or decrease. For example, we have assumed that in the beginning, when cloth production is 0, then wheat production will be 15. If we increase one more unit of cloth, then wheat production will fall from 1 unit. 15 minus 1 is 14. If we increase the production of cloth 1 to 2, then wheat production will fall from 14 to 12. Next, if we increase the production of cloth by 2 to 3, then wheat production will fall from 12 to 9. If we increase one more unit of cloth 3 to 4, then wheat production will fall 9 minus 4, 5. And if all the resources are employed in the production of cloth, then wheat production will be 0. So, marginal opportunity cost, we can calculate loss of wheat divided by gain of cloth. Here you are watching that cloth unit is increasing by 1 unit, 1, 1, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. But the wheat production is falling. Initially, it is falling by 1. After that, falling by ratio of 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. It means marginal opportunity cost here cloth cost of cloth in wheat is in the beginning it will be nil and after that it will be 1 raised to 1, 2 raised to 1, 3 raised to 1, 4 raised to 1 and 5 raised to 1. It means here marginal opportunity cost is increasing. That's why PPC curve slope will be concave to the origin. In business analysis, the production possibility frontier is a curve that illustrates the possible quantities that can be produced of two products. It depends upon the same finite resources. Like we have four resources, main producing factors are four, but other factors are like fuel, electricity, like raw material, etc. These are also helping producing factors, but initially we must have to use four factors of production like land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. Without using these primary factors, we can't produce any type of goods and services. So production possibility curve illustrate the possible quantities that can be produced with the help of given resources and given technology. PPC curve is also known as production possibility boundary or production possibility frontier or transformation curve. Now you are seeing here, here PPC curve is concave to the origin. Concave to the origin and PPC, the points lie on PPC curve like A point, B point, C point, D point and E and F. All these points which are lie on PPC curve shows fully utilization of resources. Here all the resources are fully employed or fully utilized. No one resources is wasted or underutilized. So these combinations, if we join these points, like if we produce 1 unit of cloth, the production of wheat is 14. Then if unit of cloth is 2, production of wheat is 12. So these combinations we can achieve with the help of this table. This table shows that PPC curve slope is always downward or concave to the origin. Next is attainable and unattainable efficiency. Attainable and unattainable efficiency shows that production possibility curve, which, which is always draw concave to the origin, it shows different possible combinations of two goods. All the point lies on this curve shows fully utilization of resources, but any point can be lie outside of this curve and inside of this curve. If any point lie inside of this PPC curve, that will show attainable resources or underutilization of resources. And if any point, for example G point, lie outside of this curve, this outside point shows unattainable or growth of resources. It means all the points like A, B, C, D, E and F. All these points shows efficiency of the resources, fully utilization of the resources, fully employed of the resources. But inside point shows attainable or underutilization of resources. We can produce at any point inside the PPC. This is considered attainable. Attainable means which can be achieved, but due to underutilization of resources, we are not fully utilizing that resources. Point A to F shows efficiency and are attainable. The line, the concave shape curve, which is actual production possibility curve. We can't produce at any point outside this production possibility curve, such as point G. G point shows unattainable of the resources. Unattainable means we don't have enough resources to produce more output. The production possibility curve separates attainable combinations from unattainable combinations. Next topic is, can PPC shift? If I ask you a question from you to show that how can PPC shift? So PPC can be shift either to the right hand side or to the left hand side. It means PPC can be shift. PPC can shift to the right hand side, that is called rightward shift, and PPC can be shift to the left hand side, that is called leftward shift. PPC can shift to the right or left. Shift right when we discover new resources or technology. If in our economy technology is upgraded, technology becomes advanced, and if we use modern technologies to produce goods and services, then definitely both the goods can produce in large quantity. In this case, production possibility curve shifts to the right hand side. And if we use obsolete technology, outdated technology, backward technology, and if our labor is inefficient or unskilled or untrained or uneducated, then production of both the goods will fall. In this case, production possibility curve shifts to the left hand side. It means due to the growth of resources like increase in technological upgradation and efficiency of the labor is the main cause of rightward shift in PPC. And if resources if resources like technology is outdated, obsolete, or labor is unskilled, inefficient, untrained, or uneducated, then production possibility curve will shift to the left hand side. So shift right when we discover new resources of technology. This will move the curve closer to point E, and shift left when resources are destroyed or technology decreases. So PPC can be shiftable either to the right hand side or left hand side. Now, next topic is what is the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now, your syllabus is principles of microeconomics, but you must have to know about what is the difference between the two branches of economics, which is micro and macro, and why we are studying microeconomics. What microeconomics teaches? Microeconomics is generally deals with individual units of the economy, and macroeconomics deals with whole units of the economy. Whole units means large or aggregates, or individual means single or small units of the economy. Microeconomics laws related to the marginal analysis are included in its scope. Under microeconomics, we study that law like law of production, theory of cost, returns to scale, returns to factor. These law will be studied under microeconomics. And problems which is related to whole economy like employment, public finance, national income, unemployment, poverty, population, balance of payment, all these topics are included in macroeconomics. Third point is microeconomics provides the information relating to the individual prices, individual consumption, and individual production, because microeconomics deals with individual units of the economy. That's why we will study under microeconomics only individual price. It means price of single commodity, individual consumption. It means consumption of a single person, and individual production. It means production by the single producer. But under macroeconomics, we provide the information relating to national income, total output or aggregate output, total consumption, or general price level. Fourth point is microeconomic analysis is very simple, because when you are studying about only individual person or single person, then it will be very simple analysis. But if you are studying about whole, or if you are studying like total in totality, then it will be complex. Macroeconomics is complex due to the study of large groups, due to the study of aggregates. Fifth point is microeconomics particularly focus on price analysis, like determination of equilibrium price, how equilibrium price is determined, how general price level is determined, or partial equilibrium price is determined. But macroeconomic particularly focus on income analysis. Next is microeconomic studies individual problem, and it is less important for comparative study. Microeconomic only deals with individual units of the economy, so that it is less important for the comparatively study. But macroeconomics, as you know, that it deals with whole units of the economy, or it studies in totality of all the aggregates of the economy. So it is very important. Now the next topic is what is the difference between positive economics and normative economics? These are the two types of economics, positive or normative. Positive economics always deals with what is the problem, how is the problem, and what will be the problem. It means under this positive economics, we study what is the problem, what will be the problem, and what was the problem. It means problem को हम describe करते हैं problem. What is the problem? Problem, what problem we will study. It deals with only what, how economic problem are originally solved. And normative economic studies what ought to be. What ought to be means what should be, or how problems or economic problems should be solved. Second point is positive economics can be verified with original data. It can be verified with original data. Original data means what is which you have the actual data which exist with you. And normative economics can't be verified with original data. Third point of positive economics is it aims to provide original description of an economic activity. Economic activity is that activity in which production, consumption, investment, all these all these economic activities goes on continuously. So positive economics provide us original description of an economic activity. But the normative economics aim is to determine the principles. Principles means okay, what are the principles, what should be and what ought to be done for the solution of all the problems. As we know that our economy has so many problems like problem of poverty, problem of increasing population, problem of unemployment. If we are discussing about only problems, okay, what is the problem? Like problems are population problem, poverty problem, unemployment problem, inflation problem. So that will be related to positive economics. But if we discuss the solution of these problems, how increasing population can be controlled, how unemployment problem can be solved, how inflation is increasing price level. When price increases continuously for the long time period, that is called inflation. How inflation can be solved or controlled. If we are discussing about the solution of these problems and we discuss about what ought to be or what should be, then that will be related to normative economics. Both are very important. Positive economics or normative economics both are interrelated with each other and both are very useful while we studying economics. So positive economics is based on set of collected facts only, but normative economics is based on opinion of the individuals. Next point is example of positive economics is prices and inequalities of income level in the economy. Positive economics only tells us why pricing is increasing, inequalities of income and wealth exist in our economy, but not give any solution, only discussing about problems. Positive economics only tells us what problem is prevailing in our economy. But normative economics tells us how these problems can be solved. What should what should do government to solve these problems? What steps should be taken by the government to solve these problems? Government should generate more employment opportunities to solve the problem of unemployment. So positive economics tells us only problems, but normative economics gives us solution. Positive economics discuss what is the problem, what was the problem, what will be the problem. But normative economics tells us what should be and what ought to be, how these problems can be solved, what steps should be taken by the government to solve all the existing problems which exist in our economy. So, positive economics and normative economics both are very important while you are studying economics, and both are interrelated with each other. Now, today, the new and fresh topic is theory of demand. Theory of demand is very important concept of microeconomics. Theory of demand was introduced by Marshall, Dr. Marshall. Marshall was the great economist, which gives the theory of demand. What is demand? Generally, in simple words, we say that demand is our desire. Demand is our willingness to buy. Demand is our wants. But in economics, demand doesn't say that कि only want or desire or willingness for a commodity is not considered as demand. In actual terms or in economics terms, demand refers to the quantities of a commodity which consumer can buy at a given prices and at a given time period. What is demand? Demand refers to the quantity of a commodity which a consumer is willing to buy at a each possible prices during a given period of time. This given period of time means it's a demand is a flow concept. Flow concept is that concept which is related with per day, per month, per week, per year, per hour, etc. The concept which is related with per day, per month, per week, per year, that is demand. That is called period of time. Period of time is flow concept. And our demand is not related with a point of time. Our demand is related with period of time because demand is a flow concept if other things remaining constant. For fulfilling the demand concept, we must have include these things. One is desire. If you have a strong desire for a commodity, then you can say that your demand can be fulfilled if you have strong desire. Second thing is you must have money to buy that commodity which you are demanding. If you don't have money, you can't do demand. Third is willingness to spend. You must have a desire to spend that money on that particular commodity which you want to buy. If you don't have money, you don't have any desire to pay for that, you can't fulfill your demand. And demand is always related with price. Relationship of price and quantity demanded is always inverse or negative. Whenever price rises, demand falls. And when price falls, demand rises. It means price and demand both are inversely or negatively related with each other. Demand is also related to time and quantity of commodity demanded. Like time is period of time. Demand concept is related with period of time. Why we have mentioned here period of time? Because demand is a flow concept. Demand is not a stock concept. Stock concept is related with point of time. But you can do demand, you can arise your demand at any time. At any time in sense per hour, per week, per month, per year, you can demand for a particular commodity at a given prices. So demand refers to the quantity of a commodity which consumer is willing to buy at a given prices and at a given time period. Next is demand schedule. What is the difference between demand schedule and demand curve? Demand schedule. Demand schedule is tabular presentation of different quantities of a commodity which consumer is willing to buy at given prices. For example, if we are taking this demand schedule like price per pizza and quantity demanded per week. If price per pizza is 15, then demand is 8. If price falls from 15 to 12, then demand increases by 8 to 14. As well as price per pizza is falling from 15 to 12, 12 to 9, 9 to 6, 6 to 3, then quantity demanded per week of the pizza is increasing for 8, 8 to 14, 14 to 20, 20 to 26, and 26 to 32. It means demand schedule is generally refers to the tabular presentation of different quantities of a commodity at the different prices or possible prices which already we have given. Demand schedule also shows inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. As well as price increases, demand falls. And when price falls, demand increases. Demand schedule may be of two types. Demand schedule may be of two types. One is individual demand schedule and other is market demand schedule. Individual demand schedule shows the quantity of a commodity which is demanded by individual person or a single person at given prices. But market demand schedule is the summation of individual demand schedule. For example, if A individual is demanding goods at given prices, same as if B consumer is also demanding goods for given at given prices, and C consumer is also demanding for goods at given prices. And if we add the demand of consumer A, consumer B, and consumer C, then we can derive market demand schedule. Market demand schedule is the aggregation or total of individual demand schedule. So demand schedule may be of two types. One is individual and other is market demand schedule. Market demand schedule is the summation of individual demand schedule, and individual demand schedule is a part of market demand schedule. The demand schedule lists at each price. The demand curve at the right shows each price quantity combinations listed in the demand schedule at a point of the on the demand curve. And now demand curve is a graphical presentation of demand schedule. Demand curve shows graphically this tabular presentation, so we can derive that demand curve. As you see here, see here that demand curve is always downward sloping. Downward sloping is these all points A, B, C, D, E. When we join these points, then we can draw downward sloping line, and this line is demand curve. This downward sloping demand curve shows inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So demand curve is always downward sloping curve. Next thing is, what is law of demand? Law of demand was also propounded by Dr. Marshall. In economics, the law states that all things, if all other factors and all things remains constant, then demand is particularly dependent on price. Whenever price rises, quantity demanded falls. And when price of the commodity falls, then quantity demanded increases. In other words, we can say that there is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and its price. So law of demand states that if other things remaining constant or ceteris paribus or other things being equal, then price and quantity demanded of a commodity both are inversely related with each other. Due to increase in price, quantity of a commodity falls, and vice versa. When price rises, quantity demanded falls, and when price falls, quantity demanded rises. Now in this diagram, we are showing here inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. First of all, you will draw this diagram, and on y-axis you will write price, and on x-axis you will take quantity. Because demand is dependent upon price, so here we are using two variables. One is price and other is quantity. Price is independent variable, that's why we have taken this price on y-axis, and quantity, which is dependent upon price, that is dependent variable, that is taken on x-axis. And you are seeing here P1 at P1 price, quantity is less Q1. When price falls from P1 to P2, then quantity will increase from Q1 to Q2. And if price falls again from P2 to P3, then quantity demanded will increase from Q2 to Q3. And we can plot 3 points A, B, or C. And if we join these 3 points, then we can draw demand curve. And this demand curve shows inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. That is called law of demand. If other things remaining constant, then price and demand, this must you have to write. If other things remaining constant, then price and quantity demanded are inversely related with each other. Due to rise in price, demand falls, and due to fall in price, demand rises. Now the next topic is what are the factors affecting demand? Now we will discussing here factors. It means what are the determining factors of demand, or what are the factors which affect our demand. As you know that when we want to buy any commodity, first of all we ask the question how much price of this commodity. It means our first question is price of that commodity. So demand first point is price of the commodity, which actually affects our demand. Price, as you know that law of demand states the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So price of the commodity shows that when price rises, demand falls, and when price falls, demand rises. Price of the commodity actually affects the demand of the commodity, and both are price and demand are inversely related with each other. Quantity demanded will decrease, and due to decrease in price, quantity demanded will increase, because both are inversely related with each other. So price of the commodity affects demand. Second point is income of the consumer. Income also affects our demand. You know that if we have income, large income, if we have more income, then our purchasing power will rise. We can buy more goods. If our income is less, we can buy less. We can purchase less or demand less. So income of the consumer also affects the demand of the commodity. Goods may be of three types. One is normal goods, second is inferior goods, and third is necessary goods. You know that goods are so many of types. There's a complementary goods or substitute goods. Same as goods may be of three types. One is normal goods. Normal goods are those goods which are positively related or directly related with the level of income of the consumer. If income of the consumer increases, demand for normal goods also increases. If income of the consumer falls, then demand for commodity will also fall, normal goods, in case of normal goods. But if goods are inferior, inferior means goods are those goods which are inversely related with the level of income, like raw jute or maize and raw cloth. Okay, so inferior goods are those goods which are inversely related with our level of income. If our income rises, then demand for inferior goods falls. And if income falls, then demand for inferior goods rises. It means demand for inferior goods and income have inverse relationship. That's why demand will be downward sloping. And third type of good is necessary good. Necessary goods are those goods which are very compulsory, which are very necessary for the consumer. For example, like wheat, rice, sugar, milk, salt, water, all these things are very necessary. We can't avoid to buy these goods because these goods are very necessary for the fulfillment or for the satisfying our wants, our needs for survival. So, income doesn't affect this type of goods. If income rise or falls, demand for necessary goods will remain constant. It means necessary goods on necessary goods, income doesn't affect. So, three types of goods we have studied here. One is normal goods, second is inferior good, and third is necessary good. In case of normal good, there will be positive relation with income and demand for normal goods. In case of inferior good, there will be inverse relationship between income and demand for inferior goods. And in case of necessary good, there will be no relation with income and demand for necessary good. It means either income increase or decrease, demand for necessary goods will remain constant or same. Third point is, which also affects our demand, that is consumer taste and preferences. As you know that we demand always only those goods which we want to give preference and which we have a taste for that commodity. Consumer taste and preferences are mainly affected to the demand of the product. If consumer has favorable taste and favorable preferences for that commodity, then definitely consumer will buy that commodity. If consumer don't have positive or favorable taste on preferences, then consumer will not buy that commodity. It means favorable taste and preferences increase the demand of that good, and unfavorable taste and preferences decrease our demand for that good. So consumer taste and preferences also affects our demand. Fourth point is price of related goods. Here related goods are of two types. Related goods are two types. One is substitute good and other is complementary good. Substitute goods are those goods which can use in place of each other. For example, tea or coffee. Either you can take tea or coffee, both will give you same level of satisfaction. You can make a choice in between of these two goods. So substitute goods are those goods which can use in place of each other. If price of tea rises, then consumer will buy more coffee. Consumer will demand more for coffee due to rise in price of tea because both are substitutable like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, like Mazza and Fruity, both are substitutable goods. So when goods are substitutable, then if price of one good increases, in case of increase in price of one commodity, its substitute goods demand will increase. And second type of good is complementary good. Complementary goods are those goods which always use together. It means we can't use separately this type of goods. Complementary goods like needle and thread, car and petrol, pen and refill, camera and reel, mobile with SIM card. These goods are always interrelated with each other and always used together. In case of complementary goods, if price of one good like car, if price of car increases, then what will be the effect on petrol demand? When price of car increases, then consumer will not buy car. Then why he will demand for more petrol? It means due to rise in price of car, the demand for petrol will decrease. And due to fall in price of car, the demand for petrol will increase. Because if price of car falls, then consumer can buy more cars. And if consumer will demand more cars, then demand for petrol will obviously increase. So price of related goods also affects our demand. So it is very important factor. Next, fifth point is consumers' expectations. Consumers' expectations also affects our demand. Consumer expectations is always related with future prices. In future, price can be increased or decrease. If consumer expect that price will increase in future, then what will happen in present demand? If price will increase in future, then consumer will demand more in present. And if we expect that price will decrease in future, then consumer will demand for more goods in future, not in present. In that case, if prices will increase in future, demand will decrease in demand will increase in present. Price increase future में है तो demand increase in present. And if we expect that price will fall in future, then demand will also fall in present and increase in future. Whenever price falls, demand will increase. If price falls in present, future, if price will fall in future, then demand will increase in future, not in present. So these are consumers' expectations. It also affects our demand. Next point is consumer credit facility. Consumer credit facility is also affects our demand. If credit facility or on loan or on if consumer can buy goods and services in installment basis, then consumer will demand more for that good. And if there is no credit facilities available, if consumer have to pay particular price for purchasing any type of good and services, then demand for commodity will fall. It means if credit facility is available, demand will increase. If credit facility is not available, consumer demand will be decrease. So consumer credit facility also affects our demand. Seventh point is size and composition of population. Size of population also affects our market demand. If size of population is large, as you know that India is second most largest populated country in the world after China. And in our India, population is increasing day by day. So size of population is increasing. It means more country people can demand more for goods and services. Size of population directly affects our demand. More size of population, more demand for that commodity. Less size of population, less demand will create. It means there is direct relationship between size of population and demand. Large population, more demand. Small population, less demand. And the composition of population tells us what type of population, like in population, how many people are in numbers of male, female, children, and in old age country people. In composition, we take the totality of population in form of male, female, and children and old age people. If in our country youth population is too much, then demand for youth population's product will increase. And if old age people is increasing, then demand for old age products will also increase. Next point is distribution of income. Distribution of income is also related with market demand schedule and market demand. It affects market demand, not individual. Distribution of income may be equal or may not be equal. If distribution of income is equal in our economy, then all society people will be in same level and all country people can demand for goods and services. If distribution of income is unequal, then society will divide it into two categories. One is rich, other is poor. And rich becomes more richer and poor becomes more poorer. In this case, total demand for goods and services will fall. As you know that when distribution of income is unequal, then rich becomes more richer, poor becomes more poorer. In our country, poor population numbers are higher than rich people. So in totality, if distribution of income is unequal, then demand for good will fall. And the last point which affects our demand is government policy. Government policy also affects our demand. If government policy is favorable and if government impose less taxes on consumers, then consumers can purchase and consumer can demand for more goods. But if government impose more taxes on consumers, then consumers purchasing power will be less and they will demand for less commodity. It means government policy is very important, which also affects our demand. If government policy is favorable for the consumer point of view, then demand will increase. If government policy is unfavorable and if government impose more taxes on consumer, then demand will fall. All these factors affects our individual and market demand. So these are the factors affecting of demand. Now next topic is movement along a demand curve. These two topics are very important. Movements along a demand curve and shift in demand curve, very important concept of this chapter. And factors affecting of demand curve is also very important of this chapter. Now, movement along a demand curve is also known as change in quantity demanded. Movement along a demand curve occurs due to change in price level. If other things remaining constant, only price varies, then demand curve will not shift. Only demand curve will move either upward or downward. If price falls, as we know that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Due to rise in price, quantity demanded will fall, and due to fall in price, quantity demanded will rise. If quantity demanded rise due to decrease in price, that is called extension of demand. And extension of demand can be shown on the same demand curve downward with downward movement. So if we show downward movement on same demand curve, that will be called extension of demand. And if we put upward movement on the same demand curve, that will be called contraction of demand. It means movement along a demand curve concept is related with only price of the commodity. If all the other factors remains constant, then only price affects our demand or price affects our demand inversely. Movement along a demand curve has two concepts. One is extension of demand, other is contraction of demand. Extension of demand and contraction of demand both can be shown in on the same demand curve. Here demand curve will not change, here demand curve will not shift. Only we can put upward movement or downward movement to show this extension of demand and contraction of demand. If we are showing downward movement of this, downward movement shows that price is falling. It means price is falling, then demand will increase. That is called extension of demand. And if this movement is upward, that shows price is increasing. And if price increases, then demand falls. If demand falls, that is called contraction of demand. So movement along a demand curve occurs only due to change in price of the commodity, and all the other factors which we have studied earlier, that will remains constant. Now the next topic is shift in demand curve. How demand curve can shift? Shift in demand curve is also known as change in demand curve. In this case, demand curve will shift either to the right hand side or to the left hand side. In this case, you are seeing here that demand curve is in the first diagram, demand curve is shifting to leftward. The leftward shift in demand shows decrease in demand, and the rightward shift in demand called increase in demand. So in case of increase in demand, demand curve will shift to the right hand side. And in case of decrease in demand, demand curve shifts to the left hand side. It means in case of shift in demand curve may be shift either to the right hand side or to the left hand side. But price will remain constant. Shift in demand occurs due to change in other factors. And these other factors are like income of the consumer, taste and preferences of the consumer, price of related goods, expectations, consumers' credit facility, size and composition of population, distribution of income, and government policy. We have studied all the factors affecting of demand. If we leave that price of the commodity point and take all other points, that can change our demand curve. Like income, if income falls, normal goods demand falls. In this case, demand curve shifts to the right and left hand side. If income rises, then demand for inferior goods falls. In this case, demand curve shifts to the left hand side. If price of substitute goods falls, for example, price of tea falls, then demand for coffee will also fall, because if price of tea falls, then we will buy more tea, less coffee. It means demand for coffee will fall. And demand for coffee will fall, demand curve shifts to the left hand side. If price of complementary good rises, complementary goods are like car and petrol. If price of car rises, then demand for petrol will fall. In this case, demand curve shifts to the left hand side. If our taste and preferences are unfavorable, then demand will decrease and demand curve shifts to the left hand side. And if number of buyers are less in our country, then automatically demand will decrease. In this case, demand curve shifts to the left hand side. All these factors are the main causes of shift in demand curve to the left hand side or leftward shift. And on the other hand, if income increases, then demand for normal goods also increases. If income falls, demand for inferior goods increases. In this case, demand curve will shift to the right hand side. If price of substitute goods increases, for example, price of tea increases, then demand for coffee will increase and demand curve will shift to the right hand side. If price of complementary good falls, it means like car and petrol, if price of car falls, then demand for petrol will increase. If tastes are favorable, then demand will increase. If number of buyers increases, then demand will increase. In these cases, demand curve will shift to the right hand side. And now I have discussed with you what is shift of demand curve, what is movement along the demand curve. Now there is a difference. You can write here, you can see here कि shift in demand curve is because due to change in other factors, and movement along the demand curve only occurs due to change in price. And demand either may increase or decrease, and demand movement along the demand curve, in case of this, we can show only upward movement or downward movement or extension and contraction of demand. Now, conclusion of this topic is, which you have done in today's class, that is, people will demand, that is, buy more of a good or service at a lower price, and at higher price, demand will be less. So, a change in price also affects movement along the demand curve, and other factors affects our demand, which is responsible for the shifting demand. So today's class is finished now. Thank you. Next session.